Hey, welcome back. This is going to be lesson 3 of the video series here on C# programming. In this lesson today, we're going to be talking about if statements and methods. The if statement. Some might say the if statement is an essential part of a computer program. Why, you might ask? Well, because you can control the program flow based on certain data. Let's go back to our moving example. As the truck is being loaded with boxes and stuff from your house, one has to know when to stop loading the truck and when to drive the truck to the new house. So the question gets asked, if the truck is full, lock it up, drive to the new house, else we'll keep loading the truck. By using if statements in our programs here, we can make decisions at runtime. And when I talk about runtime, I mean as the program is running, we can control certain aspects of the program as far as what type of output we want to have happen, where do we want to redirect. Maybe we're going to go to a completely different set of code, or maybe different parts of the actual program. So it's an essential part of a computer program to be able to have an if-then-else statement to control that flow. So let's take a look at the anatomy of the if statement. The if is pretty easy to understand once you grasp the concept behind it. So let's take a look here. So what we have here is a pretty basic if statement. And what we got here is we have if, opening parenthesis, and then you have your condition there. Truck is full if that's equal to true. And then we have the curly braces, and then whatever inside that first set of curly braces, if the statement does evaluate true, if this evaluates out to being true, the truck will drive away. If it doesn't evaluate true, this particular code here won't get executed, and then if we have an else statement here, that code will get executed. And we'll take a look at this here in the Visual Studio environment there. Now, by default, if statements will look for true. That sounds odd right now, but once we get using the if statement, I'll demonstrate what that means there. Now, you might notice the double equal sign. When you check to see if something is equal to something else, or if you're comparing values of some sort, we always use the double equal sign, not to be confused with the single equal sign, which is going to set a value to a given variable or a given object within our program. So let's go ahead and start a new project and take a look at the if statement. Alright, once you have your project created here, I just labeled mine if statement, and the solution is learning C# if statement. We'll have our familiar pieces of code here that we've all seen before. So what we're going to do here, we're going to go ahead and create a variable of a type Boolean labeled BLN is glass full. Now you might be wondering, why label it like that? Well, this is something we haven't talked about this yet, about how to label variables and things like that in our code. The reason I do this, and this is a standard, I think. BLN stands for Boolean, short for Boolean, and then is glass full, and that just gives me an idea, or a better idea, of what this particular variable is going to do. So let's go ahead and do that right now. We'll just do Boolean. BLN is glass full, and I'm going to set that equal to false to start out with. Now we're going to use that variable with a basic if statement and check to see if that glass is full or not. If the glass is full, we'll print a message to the screen of your liking. If the glass isn't full, again, print a message to the screen of your liking. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll go if, opening parenthesis, BLN is glass full is equal to true. Then we'll just do console.writeLine. The glass is full. Okay, pretty simple there. Let's go ahead and hit F5. Let's run our program, see what we get. No output. That is to be expected, because right now our variable BLN is glass full is set equal to false, and we're looking to see if it's true. And if it's true, we're going to write out the glass is full. So let's add the else part of the if statement. So you have your opening curly brace, your closing curly brace. That's the code that's going to be executed in that block there if it evaluates to true. So to do else, we'll just actually type in the word else, another opening curly brace, and a closing curly brace. Now this is the code that's going to be executed when that particular statement isn't true. So we'll do console.writeLine. The glass isn't full. Let's go ahead and run that and see what we get. The glass isn't full, as to be expected there. So as you can see, if statements, not too terribly complex by themselves. If then, if this, do this, else do this. Now back when I said that if statements always look for true, let's demonstrate that. We'll take out the equals part. If BLN is glass full, that's all we're going to put there. The glass isn't full. Same desired output. If the if statement always said the first block of code will always execute if it is true. So no matter what, you don't have to have the is equal to true. We don't have to do this if we don't want to, but you can. It's not not frowned upon, or it's not against the rules or anything like that. I'm just demonstrating that the if statements will always default looking for true. So we can go ahead and turn our value here to true, and we'll get our desired output. The glass is full. Like I said, not terribly complex. Like once you grasp the concept of how the if statement functions, they're pretty easy to actually understand. So let's go back to our slide here and take a look at what we got next. Nested if statements. And nested if statements are just as it sounds. You nest if statements inside one another, and basically you can go infinite levels deep if you wanted to. Let's go back into our code there. Let's build a 3-tiered nested if and see how that works. Alright, back in our code here. What we're going to do now, the nested if statement, again, let's go ahead and use the BLN is glass full variable, but also let's create 2 more Boolean type variables that will store values for if a pitcher is full or not, and also if that pitcher contains your beverage of choice. So we're still going to use this one. We don't need to get rid of that one. And then I'm going to show you something here that the IDE here offers to comment lines of code out in chunks. What you can do is we'll take this if statement here and we'll highlight it all. And if you come up here, you'll see these 2 little buttons here. One is to uncomment the selected lines, one is to comment the selected lines. If you click it, it'll put comments in front of there, so that particular code won't be executing more. It just acts as a comment. So let's go ahead and create our other 2 variables. Boolean BLN is pitcher full. I'm going to set that equal to false, and then Boolean BLN does pitcher contain my beverage. Equal that. Set that equal to false as well. Okay. As you can see, we got the squiggly green lines there. That's just telling us, hey, you've created these variables, but you haven't used them yet. So let's see. Let's start out with an if statement that says if our glass is full, we're going to do nothing. Else, if our glass isn't full, we're going to put in here another if statement. That if statement's going to be if the pitcher isn't empty. BLN is pitcher full. If the pitcher is full, we're going to ask, that means we can get some beverage out of it. Then we're going to ask again, if BLN does the pitcher contain my beverage? If it does, we'll just put out here to the console, fill my glass, please. If it doesn't contain our beverage, we'll put out I will pass. That takes care of that inner if statement there. We got the if this, do this, else do this. Now we got this if statement here we got to take care of. So if the pitcher is full, we're going to do that. If the pitcher isn't full, console.writeLine pitcher isn't full, look for another. And that takes care of that if statement right there. So we have our outer if statement, then we have an if statement within that else part of the outer if statement, and then we have a if statement within the first section of the second if statement. If that evaluates a true, this if statement gets executed. Now, like I said, you can go infinite levels deep here and keep going and going and going, but the more nested if statements you do, the harder, the more complex the code is to read and understand. So doing multiple level nested if statements, of 20 or 30 more, will work. It can be cumbersome to read, and if there's a problem and try to debug it and figure out, okay, what's actually happening here, because there's so many different steps and different tracks that the code can take. So let's go ahead and let's run our code here and see what we get for an output. No output. Why is that? Well, let's take a look here. If our glass is full, is our glass full? Let's take a look. Is our glass full? Our glass is full. Let's go ahead and just move this one down here. Code's running. You can't do anything while the code's running. Now let's just move this variable down here so we can take a look at it better. All right. So we have here, our glass is full. Is the glass full? Yes, it is full. Do nothing. Let's put some output there anyway so we can actually see something. Console.writeLine. My glass is full. Thank you. Alright, run that again. We should get that. My glass is full. Thank you. Alright, so let's take our glass is full. Let's set that equal to false and see what we get now. Now we have the pitcher isn't full, look for another. So what we got here is the if my glass is full, do this. Well, it's right now our glass isn't full, so we're going to drop down to the else statement of the outer if. Within there we ask, is the pitcher full? Right now the pitcher is not full. So then it doesn't evaluate to true, so this doesn't get executed. And it drops down to the else and just puts what we saw, the pitcher isn't full, look for another. So let's go ahead and change the pitcher to being full. And we get I will pass. So we got the pitcher is now full. This code gets executed. Does the pitcher contain my beverage of choice? It does not, because we have that set equal to false right now. So we put I will pass. And again, if we go back in and change the pitcher does contain our beverage of choice and run it, fill my glass, please. So as you can see, the nested if statement again isn't complex when you do not so tiers. Tiers. Like I said, the more tiers you get, the more complex it is. Nested if statements are just if statements within if statements. Like I said, you don't want to use them. You don't want to overuse them. They are necessary sometimes in code where you're doing checks, or if you have multiple values that you need to compare. Like for example, say you have a form that has a bunch of different check boxes on it, and you need to compare if they're checked or not, or something like that. Or a nested if statement there might be necessary. Let's go back to our slide here and see what we got next. Alright, next part is if statements using double ampersand and double pipe. What in the heck are those symbols and what do they mean? You might be able to figure out the first one, but the second one is a little trickier. Double ampersand means and. The double pipe means or. And you can use these in if statements to evaluate more than one condition, and depending on how you have your particular statement set up, you can have it set up to where both statements have to evaluate to true or false, or just one of them. And by doing this, you can reduce the amount of nested ifs in your code. Let's go back to our Visual Studio and let's take a look and see how we would actually do this. Alright, now that we're back in our code environment here, let's go ahead and create a couple new variables of type of Boolean. One that will be for if it's raining outside or not, and one for if it looks like it could rain. So let's just do Boolean, BLN, is it raining? Raining out equals false. And another one for BLN, does it look like it could rain? Set that equal to false. Okay. So to use and or in if statements, we'll first start out with using, what are we going to use, and here? No, we're going to start out using or. We'll do same as before, if, opening parenthesis, BLN, is it raining out? Then we'll do the double pipe for or, BLN, does it look like it could rain out? Console.writeLine. Bring an umbrella. Whoops. Alright, so we got if. If it is raining out, if that evaluates to true, or if it looks like it could rain out, if that evaluates to true, this code here will get executed. Either one could be true. They both could be true. This one could be true, and this one could be true. The only way this code here will not get executed is if both of these evaluate to false. And right now we have them both set to false. So we should get no output here, as desired, because both are evaluated to false. Now let's just put let's change this one to true, and we will get bring an umbrella, just like that. So when you're talking about or, it's this one be true or this one could be true. Doesn't matter which one it is, as long as one of them evaluates to true, then the following the code block right underneath of it will get executed. Okay, now let's talk about using and in an if statement. Let's create one more variable here, and we'll call that one another Boolean type. Do I have an umbrella? Set that equal to false. And we'll comment this out here. And we'll do it as we normally do here. If, opening parenthesis, BLN, is it raining out? And BLN, do I have an umbrella? Console.writeLine, you better grab it. Oops. Alright, so what this is saying here is, okay, if it's raining out, if that evaluates to true, and if I have an umbrella, if that evaluates to true, we'll bring the umbrella. We better grab it. When you're talking about and, both of them have to equal true. And we'll demonstrate that here. So right now we have, is it raining out is false, and do I have an umbrella is false. We should get nothing out in the output screen, just as before. Now even if we change, if I have an umbrella to true, and we execute it, we still won't get anything. Like I said before, both of them have to evaluate true. So let's change, is it raining out to true, and let's just change this one back to false. Run it. Nothing on the output there. So now if we change, do I have an umbrella, change that one to true, then we'll get, you better grab it. So it's not really the opposite of or, it's more parallel with it, I guess you could say. We're just, both of the statements have to evaluate to true for that first code block here underneath the if statement to be executed. Now you can take, you can have ors and ands within the same if statement. We're not going to get into that right now. Maybe later on in some lessons with where we're building larger programs, we might get into that there. But you can go ahead and experiment with that too. And if you want to learn a little bit more about that. But like I said, we'll get into that later on. All right, back on our slide here. Next thing we're going to talk about is shortcuts with the if statement. Shortcuts are sometimes good, but sometimes they can be bad. Personally, I don't like writing if statements, writing them out this way, and it's completely up to the programmer's desires if they want to use if statements this way or not. But let's go into our code and let's take a look here at what we're talking about. Okay, so let's go ahead and just comment these this code out that we had there before. And let's just create another variable called hi, set it equal to false. Doesn't matter what you call it, it's just completely arbitrary right now. Okay, a shortcut if statement. If bln hi hello there. As you can see, we have left out the curly braces. And you can also do that with the else. It's kind of a shortcut where you don't have the code that's going to be executed within the curly braces. Now when you do this, you can only use one line. You can't have multiple lines of code there try to be executed. Let's just see here. Right line. This is another line. As you can see, we get an error message saying, "Hey, there's something's going on here. I don't quite understand what you're trying to do." So if you take the shortcut if statement by leaving the curly braces out, you can condense it down a little bit. Like I said, personally, I don't like writing if statements like this because they can be difficult for human readability, if you will. I like things to be sectioned off, and this is what's gonna get executed and whatnot. So I just wanted to show you that you can do a little bit of a shortcut there, but I personally don't like to do it. Again, it's completely up to the programmer's style if they want to do it. So let's go ahead and let's go back to our slide and see what we got here. Okay, next topic we're going to talk about is reversing the if logic. Sometimes it is necessary to reverse the if logic. It is a simple thing to do, but sometimes can be difficult to read and sometimes can be overlooked, so commenting would be a really good idea. So let's take a look at what I mean by reversing the if logic. Okay, back to our code here. Let's get rid of the shortcut if statement there. And let's go back to our, let's see, can we use this? Let's just start anew. Make a new variable, a new Boolean type variable. bln, what do you want to call this one? We can just call it anything. Car in drive-through equals false. Okay. So we're going to put if there's a car in the drive-through, right line, take their order. Right now, this won't happen. Blank screen. Because this is false, and like I said, if statements will always look for true unless you reverse that logic. And in order to do that, you use an exclamation point, and it's read as not. So this is going to say if not, if false, if cars in the driveway is false, the exclamation point means not. But you read it as if this is false, take their order. So if we execute that, take their order. even though there's not a car in the drive-through, this is just the way we have it coded. So this would be like a logic error in an actual program. So you use the exclamation point to reverse the true-false logic in particular if statements there. Like I said, sometimes it's necessary. We could have used that. We could have used that up here with the glass and full and the picture thing. If I use those examples for the and the or statements, but I chose not to because we hadn't got to the reverse logic yet. But like I said, reversing the logic is easy to do. Except commenting would probably be a very good idea when you're doing this. Because like I said, it's easily missed because all it is just a simple exclamation point, and it reverses the whole thing. So just be aware of that, and it can sometimes certainly be necessary to do, and we might see that in some of the programs we write. We might not. In my career, I've had to do it, multiple times. But like I said, you got to make sure you comment your code and that so you know what's actually going on there. All right, the last thing in if statements that we're going to talk about is the single line if, or the inline if, or its ternary if statement. This type of if statement you probably won't use very often. The primary reason I use them is to set a variable value based on a condition that I need to evaluate. It sounds complex, and it's not complex. It's just kind of a different way of reading an if statement because it uses different symbols. Let's take a look at in our code here and see what I mean. Okay, you go ahead and comment out the drive-through car test there, and let's create a string variable. Let's call it str first name. And set it equal to nothing. Just two double quotes to set it equal to nothing. Or if you want, you can set a string variable equal to string.empty. It's the same thing as I shouldn't say it's the same thing as setting it to an empty double quote. But it's another way to initialize the variable. Either way is perfectly acceptable. And then let's create an integer variable called int index and set that equal to 1. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to put a value into first name based on the int index number. So what we'll do is we'll do our str first name equals opening parenthesis, and we'll do int index equal to 1. Then we're going to do Chris colon Bob. Okay, the way this is read is if int index is equal to 1, then Chris, else Bob. So if index is equal to 1, it's going to set str first name equal to Chris. If it's not, it's going to set str first name equal to Bob. And let's just write that out here. Str first name. Okay, let's run that and see what we get. And we get Chris. Index is equal to 1, so it uses Chris. And if we change the index equal to something else, we should get Bob, as we do. So these are, the first time I ever saw these, I was really confused because it just doesn't look like a normal if statement. What you're missing is you're missing the if, you're missing the else, or you're missing the curly braces, and you are missing the else. If you can just imagine as the opening parenthesis being the if, this is your conditional statement in the parentheses. The quotation or the question mark here would be like your first set of curly braces, and then the colon here would be like the else, and then your other set of curly braces. So they're condensed, and they use different symbols to get it done. On the complexity level here, I'd probably put it at like a 4, 3 or a 4 maybe. But as you use them more and more, they become easier and easier. Like I said, it's just the first time you see them, they're kind of confusing. And it's really easy to get these two symbols backwards. Like if you put the colon here and the question mark here. I mean the the environment will tell you right away that something's wrong. And if you're using one and you get, something's wrong, try switching those symbols around, and that should correct the problem. Like I said, most of the time I use these is for this particular example right here, setting a variable to a value based on some type of other condition where that particular variable could have two possible values. All right, so that's going to be the end of part one of this particular lesson here. I wanted to break it up into two parts because the if statements and whatnot got to be a little long, and I don't want to bore you too badly. So the next part two, is when we'll be discussing methods. Hope to see you in part two.